There are still a whole bunch of Americans who want to get out of Afghanistan but can't. That exact number is not known. The Biden administration is minimizing it. Why? Because they know that these Americans are de facto, in fact, hostages. So Biden has a hostage crisis in Afghanistan in much the same way that Jimmy Carter did in Iran. Now, the real difference is this: it's not being acknowledged either by Biden or by his supporters in the media as a hostage crisis. You remember in the Jimmy Carter days, the hostage issue was front and center every single day. Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, Walter Cronkite, it's day 47 of the hostage crisis. And it went on like that, keeping the reality of the situation, the crisis of it, in front of the American public. And that put pressure on the Carter administration to figure out what to do, because a crisis creates a sense of urgency. When you know that you have Americans being held hostage, you've got to figure out a plan, a rescue, some sort of a way of getting them back, a solution, perhaps an ultimatum. And the thing about Biden is they don't want to do any of this. And so what is their solution? Their solution is basically, let's try to convince the American people that there is no there there, that maybe the Americans who are there don't want to leave, or maybe they do want to leave, but this is something we're just going to be kind of working on. Let's not use the so-called H word. Now, there might be some people who dispute this characterization and say, well, listen, the difference, of course, was in Iran, the students, radical students were holding these people in a physical confinement. That's not going on in Afghanistan. Well, it is. And it is for the simple reason that who controls Afghanistan? The Taliban control it 100%. Are the Taliban or are they not a bunch of terrorists? Is this or is it not a terrorist regime? It is. And therefore, it follows that a terrorist regime now has full control over the fate of not just American allies in Afghanistan, but of American citizens in Afghanistan. Let's remember that Biden said to Stephanopoulos, this goes back to August 19th, we're going to stay to get them all out. Clearly untrue. That didn't happen. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, he says, I'm not aware of anyone being held on an aircraft or any hostage-like situation. What he means, I think, is simply that he hasn't seen people with the blindfolds. He hasn't seen people with Taliban standing over them, heavily armed. And absent that physical image, he's saying they're not hostages. Not really. No, not by my definition. Well, by any normal definition of people who want to get out but are being held against their will, they can't get out, and their own country can't get them out except with the consent of the terrorists who are holding them, well, that is about as clinical a definition of a hostage as you're going to get. We have Americans stranded behind enemy lines. And as I've said before, this is not the result of some kind of miscalculation. It's not the result of getting out in a big hurry, because after all, this was a date set by the Biden administration in advance. This is a crisis that Biden made.